In 1960, a geologist found a small bone in the Congo. It was dark, about 10 centimeters long, and covered in scratches. At first glance, it looked like nothing. A broken tool, maybe. Something an animal had chewed. He almost threw it away. He didn't. And that decision changed how we understand the origin of numbers. The bone had 168 notches carved into it, arranged in 3 separate columns. For years, researchers assumed the marks were random. Decoration. A tally with no logic behind it. Then someone actually counted them, column by column. The notches weren't random at all. They were grouped. Clustered in patterns that looked deliberate. Some rows doubled the previous row. Some followed a rhythm that resembled counting in 2s, and 5s, and 10s. This wasn't decoration. This was math, carved into bone. Roughly 20,000 years before anyone wrote a single word. Here's W. 15,000 years after this bone was made. No numerals. No symbols for quantity. No language for 7 or 12, and yet, someone sat down, picked up a sharp stone, and carved a system precise enough that modern mathematicians still argue over what exactly it was tracking. A lunar calendar. A hunting log. A record of days. Nobody knows for certain. But everyone agrees on one thing. Whoever made this bone was counting. This is where it gets strange. Because you'd assume counting requires language first. Words for numbers, then the idea of numbers. But the evidence suggests the opposite order. Humans were tracking quantities long before they had words to describe them. Right now, you count without thinking. You check the time. You count change without looking at it. Your brain does this instantly, automatically, using a number system so deeply wired that you forget it were. X and bone. Start with fingers. Almost every counting system on Earth, no matter how different the languages, no matter how far apart the cultures, is based on the number 10. Not because 10 is mathematically special. Because humans have 10 fingers. Base 10 isn't a discovery. It's an accident of anatomy, repeated independently by cultures that never once made contact with each other. But fingers run out fast. 10 objects, and you're done. So ancient humans invented ways to keep going. Some cultures used finger joints instead of whole fingers, allowing a single hand to count up to 28. Some used body parts entirely, touching elbow, shoulder, ear, nose, in a fixed sequence, turning the entire human body into a counting device with dozens of positions. Then came the tally. A mark for every unit. Simple, brutal, effective. The Libombo bone, found in a cave in South Africa. Why 43,000 years ago? Some researchers believe it tracked menstrual cycles. A biological calendar, carved by hand, thousands of years before anyone imagined a written word. Think about what that means. The oldest mathematical object we've ever found isn't a monument. It isn't a weapon. It's a record of time, kept by someone who needed to know how many days had passed, and had no other way to remember. Here's the part that should unsettle you a little. This wasn't one genius solving a problem. This happened independently, over and over, in places with zero contact with each other. Tally marks in Africa. Knotted cords in the Andes, called quipu, capable of recording complex numerical data using nothing but knots and color. Counting rods in ancient China. Pebbles moved across lines in the dirt across the Mediterranean, the ancestor of every abacus that came after. Diff. As the same. Humans needed to track what they couldn't hold in memory alone. Food stored. Days passed. Animals owned. Debts unpaid. Numbers weren't invented for curiosity. They were invented because forgetting had consequences. If you lost count of your stored grain, you starved before spring. If you lost count of the moons, you missed the migration, the flood, the birth. Math didn't start as an abstract idea. It started as a survival tool, sharpened out of necessity the same way fire and shelter were. And that bone from the Congo, the one almost thrown away in 1960, sat quietly proving something we tend to forget. You didn't inherit numbers as a finished system, handed down complete. You inherited the end result of tens of thousands of years spent refusing to lose count of anything that mattered. Every time you check your phone for the date, you are using a tool whose first draft